Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Weekly Armchair. I'm joined tonight by an esteemed guest who I've been absolutely loving getting back on. Actually, we had a lot of things going on a couple of years ago, and it's good to see your face again, my man. How are you, first of all?
Oh, mate, that entrance was too grand. But no, I'm brilliant, mate. It's been a long time. It's great to chat with you. It feels like forever, doesn't it? So yeah, really pleased to be on, and yeah, excited to talk about United because I think there's a lot of news flying around at the minute, and typically, the fan base sort of jump on every little bit of news, and there's a little bit of hysteria all the time. So it'd be nice just to have a conversation, break it down, and just talk about it objectively.
Absolutely, yeah. Good to have you on, buddy. I know you're doing a lot in the background. I know you've obviously moved overseas and all that sort of thing. So I hope that's all going well. So obviously at the beginning of the season, it all started so well, and here we are, obviously trying to battle for fourth, and it's looking like it's a bit of a slippery slope. But we had a wonderful summer. I don't know how you felt about the signings. You can talk about those in a moment. And obviously after the first game, winning 5-1, it gave us a full sense of security, and here we are. But talk to me about what you thought about the summer and obviously the start we had.
Oh, look, you can't look at the summer transfers and not be excited at all. Nice to see Reece. Been a long time, man. Hope you're doing well. I always felt that we were short in midfield. I'm just shocked we didn't bring a midfielder in. That's what really shocked me. And when we let Van der Beek go as well, I was thinking it's logical then to bring in a midfielder. So I was always a little bit wary. But when you look at the signings coming in and obviously what Ollie had done the season before, there was no reason why we shouldn't have been challenging for the title this season. And when I say challenge, I'm talking about this time of the season. Like we're in April or even March, and we're out of every competition. So, when I say by challenging, I didn't expect us to win it, but I expected us to be sitting there probably, in the 5 points behind, let's say City or Liverpool. A first game happened, and you're like, right, this is really exciting. Obviously, Ronaldo hadn't joined yet, and don't want to say too much about Mason, but obviously, fantastic performance playing in that number 9 role. Front three looked very fluid. Bruno Fernandes doing what he does best and affecting games with goals and assists. And it's just sort of gone downhill from there. I think one of the biggest concerns was that when you look at the midfield, it's probably sitting there in genuinely maybe in the top 8. And I'm saying there are 8 other teams better with their midfield than us. And you can't control games. You can't win titles. You can't take the pace out of games. You can't protect the back four with midfielders that we've currently got. And it's not their fault. McTominay has his place in the squad, so is Fred. And we're seeing a really exciting Fred under Ranić, further forward, affecting games, great work rate. But you needed someone in there that was going to control things a little bit more, take the tempo out of the game. Unfortunately, United haven't got that. No one to link from defence to attack. And we are where we are. We're underperforming. And I don't really care what anyone says. There are good players in the squad, players that would walk into other sides and do really well. But it's just been a very difficult, very disjointed, obviously very difficult start under Ollie. Ranić's come in, no preseason, and just another write-off. It's really frustrating because we're sitting here and we have the same conversation every single week. You know this, Mark. You do a lot of podcasts. The same conversation every single week. We want to be positive, but even if someone like Ten Hag does come in, I'm not sitting here and absolutely, man, we definitely need to do that. I'm not sitting here and I'm not going to get too excited because I've seen these too many of these false dawns, unfortunately. So, look, I think Ranić's done a really good job considering everything. It was a shame to see Ollie go. I was never the biggest Ollie fan, unfortunately, but I can appreciate the work he did do. But I think he was probably let go a little bit too late. But the signings that he brought in were good signings on paper. It just hasn't worked, unfortunately.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Good points, well made. And I was going to move on to Ralph a little bit more. Actually, when I obviously heard the links, which kind of did come out of the blue, but there was links a couple of years ago. I was very, very happy with that appointment, and really, it's a bit of you're stuck between a rock and a hard place because from United's point of view, getting an interim in, it kind of suits their agenda and this, and this, but it doesn't give them a lot of direction. But were you happy with that appointment when he came in? And how do you think he's fared so far under the circumstances? Just one thing as well, I agree with you with Ollie. We've had many, many conversations about him before, and I'm not going to talk about that too much, but I feel that it really is kind of proving a little bit that it wasn't Ollie necessarily. I know that we have is issues with tactically and the rest of it, but I feel that there is a real, other than the Glazers, we can talk about it all the time, but there's a real deep-rooted problem with the players as well.
United from top to bottom is a mess, unfortunately. When you have a look at the underperforming over 15 years, and you look at, obviously, Sir Alex Ferguson, what he did, what an amazing achievement he did, keeping this club, our head above the water, that's what I say, because we're looking back. Ronaldo was sold. He was replaced by Michael Owen, and Valencia. So this is just, over a decade's worth of poor decisions, siphoning money out the club, not investing. You can't say they haven't spent money. It's all United's money, by the way, 1.25 billion of United's own generated money. They've never given loans to the club. They've never obviously invested in any of the infrastructure of the club. That's a different conversation. But it's been spent poorly. And when I look at Ranić, I was very, very excited. The reason why I was excited is because I wasn't so much looking at this season. I was looking at what was going to be beyond. And we've seen he's built clubs. He's a club builder. We saw what he did at Leipzig. And we've seen, obviously, when he was at Hoffenheim. What I wanted to see was him to come with a blueprint and then build Man United from top to bottom, or the bottom up, starting with the academy, bringing in, top talents, which we're doing at the moment. Actually, there's some fantastic players in the academy. Garnacho is brilliant. And there's a couple of other good players.
Alvarez, Mebry.
Yeah, Alvarez. Yeah, look, McNeil. There's some really exciting players, and that's why the next manager he'll have to bring in some of these players, get rid of some of these overpaid and underachievers, in my opinion, and then bring in some quality talent as well. Supplement it. Ralf Rangnick, he's got a really difficult job, to be honest, mate. He took over a squad that was just getting beaten every single week, broken. You have to think about it tactically as well. And I think what was quite surprising for me, because there's always this, I'm not even the biggest Ollie fan. You know this, Mark. You've been on my podcast many times. We've chatted about it. I've never sat here, though, and said he's got zero tactics like some of these idiots on Twitter say. What was frustrating is that, United did have an identity under him, and it just completely vanished in that season. So what was frustrating, I think, is that when Ralph came in, and there was opportunity to bring Ralph in when we had that 2-week break for the international break, and obviously he didn't, and then Ollie was sacked after Watford. I think he's done a really good job in the circumstances, but I think the fact that he is the interim has made him sort of a sitting duck. Essentially, these players aren't going to listen to him. He's got zero authority. And now we're seeing, and I did say this, that this consultant role, I had to see more about it. And what is a consultant? Mark, we both work in businesses. A consultant comes in twice a month, jumps on a Zoom call, and gives a little bit of advice, or like a non-exec director. We both work in companies where this happens. The consultants aren't part of the fabric. They're not part of the actual hierarchy. They're on the payroll just for a little bit here and there. And there's my PS5 going off. So when we look at all these sort of things, sort of bring together, I have a bit of apprehension going forward and thinking, well, what's Ranić's role exactly? Because he's not going to be sitting there day to day running it. He'll be just giving his input. So I feel like as fans, we've slightly been conned, and this happened over the years because we all thought Ralf Rangnick was going to come in and build his club and be like, right, this is the plan, this is the vision, these are the players, this is the manager, this is a 3 to 5 year plan. Unfortunately, it's going to be another 3-year plan because what's happened this season has pushed us back another 2 or 3 years, in my opinion, unfortunately, after looking like we were just on the cusp of challenging. If Ollie had signed a midfielder, he'd still be in the job today. I firmly believe that. Whether I was the biggest fan of him or not, I would never be biased. He probably would be.
I completely agree with you.
But I just think that with Ranić, people need to relax. I'm seeing a lot of people say the footballing structure's in there. We've got Murto, we've got Fletcher. Jury's still out on both of them. We've got Ranić. But ultimately, there's zero evidence to suggest anything's changed. Arnold is a CEO. I know we're hearing a lot of good stuff saying he wants to have a footballing side and a commercial side. I'm just going to wait until I see it, unfortunately. So with Ralf Ranić, absolutely delighted when he came in. I think the biggest issue, though, and myself and Rob had this conversation, that because he is the interim, none of these players are taking him seriously. They're on holiday, and unfortunately, the squad is not built as well to play gegenpressing. He hasn't had a pre-season. That's really underrated. Spending all that time on the training pitch, really drilling these players, and then you're also seeing the players that can't do that. Whether it's up in there, they're unwilling to do it, or they just can't physically do it. So it's been a really difficult time. But considering everything considered, he was here to steady the ship. If he can get top 4, he walks out with his head held high. I just don't think this consultancy role will be something. I think you'll hear in 6 months into it that he's gone because of differences. He wanted to bring players in, and they didn't want to bring any players in. So make of that what you will.
No, I absolutely agree with you. I think you hit the nail on the head. He's had a very difficult time. and coming in sort of in a very difficult time of the season, and not being able to get the players in that he wants. As you know, a lot of the players aren't fit enough, or at least aren't capable enough to play gegenpress, and it is a real shame indeed. And I think that with regards to the roles that you spoke about, it has been sort of words that have come out just to appease the fans, and unfortunately, we've once again, as we do every season or every couple of years, sort of gobbled it up and thought, oh yeah, this sounds great, and it's not quite worked out, has it? Really disappointing. I really thought that obviously with some of the signs, we'll talk about those. Obviously, you and I spoke about, I think, with our good friend Henry, about Ronaldo coming back and the whole romantic thing behind it. But how do you think he's fared this season? He wasn't the player that we wanted, really. It sounds beautiful. It sounded like a great sort of pipe dream, but it's not. Personally, I feel that he doesn't press enough from the front, but I do think that we should bring in players to be able to accommodate that a bit better. That's my personal feeling, but how about you?
I'm gonna look, the nostalgia and the romantic side of me is gonna take over just for a second. The day that he signed was just I don't think I haven't felt like that about United for years. It just felt like I was a kid again. Would I change that whole day and that mad 24, 48 hours? I just remember just like almost like crying, because growing up on him, I grew up obviously on Bex. I'm 27, so I'm not the oldest fan.
Happy birthday for a few days ago,
mate,
by the way, buddy.
Get old, man. Nearer to your age, unfortunately. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. Getting closer. You're catching up, buddy.
Catching up, mate. Catching up. But that's the thing. So, I wouldn't have changed that for the world. And just for that alone, it was brilliant. Unfortunately, when you're having a look at all the things you've got to take into account, look, he's still a fantastic goal scorer. He can still affect games. You'd hope that the mentality thing, there is a good mentality thing there. Obviously, with him, he's an absolute winner. I think you're right when you look at feeding him. We don't create enough from the wide areas. We don't put enough crosses in, or we don't put enough quality crosses in. You put ball into the box for him, he'll score 9 times out of 10. He's still got that. What you found, though, is when you look at all the top sides in Europe, unfortunately, we're going to have to talk about Liverpool. We're going to have to talk about City. All of their front three press extremely, extremely hard. They press as a unit. They're interchangeable. Ronaldo's actually working seriously hard. If you watch him play, he is busting a gut. He is pressing. But the thing is, he's 37 years old. So when he is having to get the ball and his legs are gone.
I struggle at 33, and he's ripped.
Exactly. He's ripped. Listen, what 37-year-olds playing for Man United, leading the line for Man United in the Premier League? There is none. Giggsy obviously was a midfielder playing till 40, but he dropped back into midfield when he was on the wing. And, he has a fantastic brain. Ronaldo is working really, really hard. And the issue is, though, there's an issue with Bruno Fernandes in terms of chemistry and jumping into each other's spaces and working together in tandem. But unfortunately, I've seen it so many times. And that's why when he played in the Spurs game, he scored 3 goals. He was absolutely fantastic in that performance. I mean, single-handedly won the game for United. And that was Ronaldo with, 2 weeks off or so, maybe a week and a half. So that's what Ronaldo is, fresh. Now, I think what Ranić's done really, really well is he's actually shown that he has the balls to say, look, Ronnie, you're sitting on the bench. This game's better for this front line, Bruno, false line, whatever. And what you're seeing is that he's managing his minutes. Now, if Ronaldo was happy to have his minutes managed, then I'd be like, cool, keep him at the club. But he's not going to want to sit on the bench. He's going to want to play week in, week out. Unfortunately, if you want to progress forward, and that's why there was a conversation, Harry Kane or Darwin Nunez, who's been, and I think Harry Kane's fantastic. He's world class. But you got to think that United need to now start building for the future, which means go and find the next Harry Kane, go and find the next Ronaldo, bring him into the side, and then nurture them and build a system around them and coach them and just make sure they understand those fundamentals. Yeah, go on.
Sorry, buddy. Just quickly interject. I think you're absolutely right. I've spoken about this recently as well. I think it's it's widely known that United have too many times over the years bought in the big names, spent the big money, created all this hysteria, and actually it's not working out. We know that, and you're absolutely spot on. We need to, and especially with a man like Ralph, who is one of the best in the business, allow him to have that control and say, right, these are the players we need. These fit the criteria. We can get it for X amount, and you can get 4 or 5 players, bring them in. Do you know what I mean?
Too many times we've gone and spent, and that's why I really like Harry Kane. I think he's a great player. The age and the price does scare me a little bit. And then I look at obviously younger, look Patrick Schick, for example, fantastic player, has had a really good season, young, and who's going to be able to do those. So I always say this, right? I say this on the masterclass. Forget about the big names. It's about the system. And then I always say this to you, Mark. System is king, and it's about okay, what does each player in that system? What is their role? What do they have to do in attack? What do they have to do in defense? So with and without the ball, and how do they have to basically hold their position when we don't have the ball? And I think about every single player in, let's say, City's team, and they know their roles to a T, and they understand what they have to do with the possession, without possession. I look at Man United, and I don't see that. I've seen elements of it as well, to be honest with you. When you have a look at when you do look at some of the performances on the Ralph, you've seen it, but it's just not enough time on the training ground. But you're also seeing that there's players in that squad who don't have maybe the intelligence, unfortunately, the footballing IQ, and they don't have the desire, or they just can't physically do what they have to do. And you're looking at United squad, you're seeing midfield, there's not enough ball playing ability, someone that can control the game. I think in the wide areas as well, sort of the decision making, Sancho's fantastic. I think Rashford's definitely dropped in that, and also tracking back the number 9, being able to sort of play off the last man, make those runs in, hold the ball up, press as well. And you're looking at the fullbacks getting forward and being able to put the ball into the box, centre backs being able to defend and make those win those one-on-one duels. We've seen Maguire miss a few of them as well. Do you understand? So there's all these different players with different roles. I don't think Man United are buying players for specific roles to fit in the system. They're buying players because City want them, or they're a big name, or they're going to sell shirts. I want United to go and sign 5 players that are 20, 30 million, not 2 players that are 50, 60, 70 million. Do you understand?
Yeah.
I want us to buy 5 players.
We've spoken about this before, actually. We've spoken on shows probably about a year ago now about the fact that Liverpool have an analytical team that are able to look at players for what they bring. And there were obviously talks at the time that United were going to try and instill this system to look at that. And again, I feel that that's been sort of papering over the cracks, or at least pulling wool over our eyes to make us think that we're going in the right direction. And that's not happened.
Yeah, do you remember the story I always used to tell you about Mo Salah? I always used to say it on the show when we used to do those shows on Red Devil.
I've used it many times since, mate, yeah. But yes.
But it's a perfect example. Unfortunately, we have to talk about Liverpool, and you just can't. Unfortunately, it's the worst thing ever, seeing them right at the top, our biggest rivals. We're sitting there and we're seeing that the way that they built the squad. And for a period, I think we were doing that under Oli. I still don't understand some of the signings. He wanted to have centre backs that could play with the ball, and Maguire can do that, but he also wanted them to be able to play and win those one-on-one duels. And I think Maguire does struggle in that. There's a lack of pace there. With Wan-Bissaka, he wanted fullbacks to go forward. Why were we signing Wan-Bissaka when the worst part of his game? Maybe he thought he could develop him, but again,
he used to play as a right winger, didn't he? Prior to going to right back.
God knows how he was playing. Well, that's why he went to right back, didn't he? Unfortunately, but yeah, the story obviously with Mo Salah is that Liverpool wanted Julian Brandt, and they did all the data analytics. And United have just obviously got a data team over the last 2-3 years. They're very far behind, but we are starting to build that area of the squad up. But you look at Julian Brandt, he was the number 1 choice, and the club turned around to Klopp and they were like, we can't get Brandt, but we're going to get Salah because he's the closest in terms of, the numbers, in terms of, his goals and assists, and exactly what he was going to do for the system in terms of playing as like, sort of in the channel, inverted winger. And they signed Mo Salah for 35 million, and he's probably been the best player in the Premier League for the last 3-4 years. And that's what a proper football club does. So Man United, what do? They sign Edinson Cavani, and then they sign, Cristiano Ronaldo, 2 very different players. And it doesn't make sense, So I know something that Oli did want is he wanted to have a squad where he had a bit of everything. So that's an interesting approach. But for me, that doesn't work, because that means that from game to game, you're changing your approach. And as a manager, for me, I think you have to have a strong philosophy. A lot of people talk about Ten Hag. I'm sure we'll talk about him a little bit later, but he is one manager that will come in and he needs those roles and those skill set in the players that he brings in to make his system work. And if he doesn't get that, we're going to be sitting there and watching LVG football, because that's unfortunately the reality. And I know that I slept a few times in Old Trafford when that happened. You never shot on target till the 60th minute. So it's very difficult. I just think United have to be really, really smart now in the summer. What they're going to do, I'm the biggest Paul Pogba fan. I think you probably let him go. I think you're going to let Cavani. Obviously, Cavani, Lingard, and Mata will all go. They're not getting their contracts renewed. That is nearly, That's like 600,000-700,000 off your wage bill. Trim that wage bill down and bring in some quality talent. Ronaldo, it's going to be controversial. And I love him. I think you probably let him go. You need to bring in a couple of strikers. I just don't understand. I'm sitting here and I look at Man City. This is the thing. This is what United used to do. They used to improve and strengthen the squad around top. You look at the Man City. They went and picked up Julian Alvarez for 17 million. He's going to be an absolute top player. United used to do that, and it doesn't make any sense. It's a good comment here. Well, I'll let you read that out, Mark. But it's good.
Ronaldo's sign was fantastic for the day, but that was in it. But it proved the heart ruled over the head. Yeah, absolutely spot on. Another good point here, actually. I'm just going to mention. Make sure you're liking, guys, subscribing as well. Really important to us, and get your comments as well. Really good conversations going on. Matt makes a great point here, actually. It only came out today. Louis van Gaal has said it on a number of occasions now. Obviously, a very angry man, and rightly so, quite bitter with how he obviously left. And I know you kind of alluded to it earlier, Haider. The football under him was dreadful, but actually I think that he was the first man, and you and I have spoken about this, that actually came in with an idea. And maybe if we'd have kept him for another year, it could have changed when he had a couple more windows. But obviously he came out today. And Haider, what do you make of the comments that he said? So he mentioned today that if Ten Hag was sensible, he would stay away from, he would go to a football club and not a commercial club like Manchester United.
I've been saying this. I've been saying this. I've been getting a lot of pelters for this. I've been saying the same thing. You probably see over my shoulder here. I've got a little Pochettino pillow. You remember that pillow, don't you? Very well. I didn't buy that for myself, by the way. I've had that for about 3-4 years. So I'm a Pochettino fan. But look, I'd be delighted with Erik Ten Hag. One issue with Man United fans is we're the first to turn around and say, you know what? The club's this, and this. They only care about money. They're only commercial. They don't care about football. Soon as someone else said, oh yeah, what a classic Louis van Gaal's arm. He was very entertaining. I do miss that side of him. I don't miss the football, but I do miss him in the pressers. Is he wrong though, Mark? When you have a look, I've been saying this consistently. Would I be happy with Ten Hag? Yes, I would be happy because I think he's a fantastic manager. I have some serious doubts and there are question marks. But you know that if they invest the time, there's patience from the fans. That's a big question to ask, by the way. And they allow him, they have that blueprint, they have that vision, and they follow it for 3 to 5 years. That United could be up there playing some fantastic football and challenging. And I've always said this, that if I was Ten Hag, I would wait for the City job. It's absolutely logical because of infrastructure isn't there in place. The succession plan will be very well put in place. They like him a lot. Transition from Pep to Ten Hag. You look at the squad makeup and the style of football. Why would you come to Man United? Genuinely, why?
Yeah,
okay, there's an ego thing as well, unfortunately, where you want to be the manager that turns United around and brings back the glory days from Sir Alex. But it's just such a risk for his reputation. And that's not, look, I'm the biggest United fan going, but I'm a little bit concerned because they didn't back all the other managers properly. So what makes you think they're going to change now? And it could basically set back Ten Hag's career. And if I was him, I would probably wait for City. And there's a comment here saying I can see Ten Hag and Enrique. If we get Ten Hag, Enrique will go to Manchester City. So look, I mean, either way. Cheers, Munzi. How you doing, man? So either way, look, it's a really difficult. I just think Van Gaal's spot on. He is bitter. Don't get me wrong. I mean, look, the man got sacked after 5 minutes after the FA Cup final win, pretty much, and he didn't get the players he wanted.
Well, I think he was sacked 6 months prior to that, wasn't he?
Yeah,
the media
Jose
absolutely hounded him because Mourinho was available and I think it was just, and this is why I get so frustrated with United as we do with everything. It just was so poorly handled. And it could have been so different.
Well, look, the football was awful. Van Gaal had to go, but I agree with you. I think about it now, and I was a big advocate for Jose Mourinho. I think that most of the fan base were.
Yeah, I was.
But we got Jose Mourinho probably 3 years too late. He probably should have come in after Fergie if that's when we were going to bring him in. And we've seen his career now. He was on the decline, and I think that's a positive. With Ten Hag, and Van Gaal was on the decline as well. It was Pochettino or Ten Hag, and at the time I was like, get Pochettino. I know LVG had it because Spurs wanted LVG. So they got Poch and we got LVG. And look how different it could have been with Pochettino. It doesn't mean necessarily would have been better, but a younger, more progressive manager would have been the right move. When I look at Ten Hag, though, I do have concerns about I have concerns that I think fans are overlooking because they're seeing Ajax play great football. And I think they're just not looking at the situations, the environments. I don't think United's environment. How many players have come in, Mark? I'm going to ask you now that we signed in the last 5 to 7 years have come in, started really well, and then regressed and got worse. How many?
Way too many. I mean, we've really only had maybe Daley Blind. We should have kept him. I think he was superb. Really, really ruined the day for that. Bruno Fernandes, obviously. But really, they're the only two that jumped to me that actually have made a huge impact. If I'm brutally honest, Maguire obviously had a fantastic season, really, in the first one. This season, I have no idea what's happened to him. Luke Shaw didn't really start particularly well, got better under Van Gaal and then dropped off. Mourinho and he's playing poorly. And that's damning because you look at all the signings under Ferguson, we always relate back to that and what a wonderful time and everything, but he always made the correct signings at those points and we're just not getting that.
It's also continuity though. Think about it. You have Sir Alex's squad and then you brought in David Moyes. You didn't give him an opportunity. Never really should have got the job, but I'm delighted to see him doing really well at West Ham. He's a good manager and it's good to see him doing well and he's found his level there. But again, look, you signed 1 or 2 players, Fellaini and Juan Mata, and you're playing Juan Mata on the right wing, even though he's a number 10, probably one of the best number 10s in the Premier League at the time. Then you bring in Louis van Gaal, you go to possession-based football, and then you bring in a whole load of players. One, they weren't good enough, but you bring in a whole load of players that, sort of fit that mold, ball players. Then you sack him, then you bring in Jose Mourinho, who's absolute opposite, plays on the counter-attack, likes to play a low block. And then you've got these possession-based players that don't fit it at all. Then you don't get out the squad. This is a problem. Then you've got 3 or 4 managers with 4 different sets of players. Then Ole Gunnar Solskjaer comes in after Jose Mourinho. Obviously, let's be honest, an absolute fluke that he did as well as he did. You offered him the contract. In my opinion, you probably shouldn't have, but that's fine. But he had a great 2 years. Obviously, got United back-to-back Champions League. Should have won the Europa League final. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. I think things would have been different if he had. Again, you back him with £410 million. And now you're sitting here again, you're like, right, well, now I still need to gut out the squad. And the problem is that we're not going to do a City-esque rebuild of 8 or 9 players out and then, 8 or 9 players in, unfortunately.
We can barely get rid of 1 or 2, which is another worry for me in the summer. We've got so many players. I know, obviously, they're going to be players leaving on the end of contracts, which is always a damning thing too.
Yeah.
But there's other players that we need to get rid of, and we're not going to have wholesale changes. Really, really difficult indeed. But with regards to the manager search, I know you hit upon Pochettino. Obviously, I know you're a big fan of his. I am too, and quite honestly, I'd be happy with either one of those two or Luis Enrique, who's also been tipped as well. Obviously, trying not to show too much bias. Talk to me about all 3 of those and what they might bring in, and who would be obviously your favourite.
So let's talk about what's actually going on. Obviously myself and Rob do speak about it. Rob's got connections at the club. So, any information that we talk about in the masterclass is, it's not speculation. It's what's happened. So let's start with when Ole Gunnar Solskjaer got sacked. United didn't want Antonio Conte. And, obviously then they went for, this is a really good comment actually here by Matt. Yeah, he's spot on. Donny was cast at Ajax, left, hasn't progressed. Claessen's was the same. Ziyech to a point as well, obviously starting to perform a little bit. This is a worry though with Ajax, and we'll talk about that actually when we talk about Ten Hag. When you look at it, and obviously Ranieri got the job. A serious club, if you want Pochettino, this is not me being biased, but if you want Pochettino because he's been United's first choice for years, pay the money and get him out of his contract. PSG are trying to save face. Obviously, they want to be a super club. They want to be up there with the Man Uniteds, the Bayern Munichs, Real Barças of the world. The absolute elite, biggest clubs in the world. They don't want their manager taken from them. They've just signed Messi. So, unfortunately, United's decision now is going to be based, for me, purely monetary. I think we know Ten Hag is the front runner. Pochettino, I've got a sneaky feeling. I think it's going to be Ten Hag. From everything that we've heard, it's going to be Ten Hag.
I think there's only a 5 million buyout for him as opposed to maybe 20 for Poch.
And that's part of the problem. Look, Man United might end up with the manager with the higher ceiling. I know a lot of people think that, and I think Ten Hag possibly does have the higher ceiling with all the conditions in place. I think the football would be fantastic, but I'm just concerned because it's just not Manchester City, or in terms of their structure. Unfortunately, that used to be us. When we're having a look at it right now, Mauricio Pochettino, I think you can't judge a manager, in my opinion, on PSG because that club's a circus. Guys go and have a little like sort of read about, and I'm sure a lot of you know this already, about what goes on behind the scenes there. Obviously, you've got the sheikh sort of who owns the club. Leonardo runs the shots, so the manager has no say, and it's a dressing room full of just player power. So similar to Man United, but I don't think on that as much as that extent. And when we have a look at Pochettino, I think he's made some legitimate mistakes at PSG. And when you have a look at the season last season, he came in, they were third. So I don't think we really can give him that much, sort of a criticism, abuse. Unfortunately, he's not flavor of the month, Mark. We know this. Unfortunately, Ten Hag is almost, Pep-like now amongst the fan base. But you've got to break each one down because each of them has positives and negatives. And I think Reese's personal favorite, Enrique, is actually the one who comes out top in terms of all the criteria. When you look at Pochettino and you look at what he did at Southampton, he went to Espanyol, did fantastically well, and then got the job at Southampton. They became one of the best pressing sides. I think in the last 5 to 7 years, Poch's sides, I think Spurs twice, Southampton a couple of times, are up there with the most meters run in a game. They're extremely hard working. They were energetic, high press, direct, counter-attacking.
But could that be a problem with the players that we have again still? Because
I think the transition between
go on.
Our squad right now, let's say we have the squad tomorrow and Pochettino came in and Ten Hag came in, there'd be less work that you need for Poch's squad. Yeah, it is run by clans. For Poch to work with the squad than Ten Hag, because that's when I say, maybe Ten Hag's football would be better. I to be honest, mate, I'd much rather sit here and watch Klopp's teams rather than Pep's teams. That's just my opinion. Everyone has different views. Some people like to watch us dominate possession and stroke the ball around, but I always enjoyed Sir Alex. Like, we still stroke the ball around beautifully, but my favorite goals are always the ones where we went from defense to attack or counter attack, fast paced, energetic football. So when I look at Pochettino, the legitimate, and then he went to Spurs, and everyone says this Spurs side was. I had this chat actually with one of the lads here, saying the Spurs side was the best Spurs side that there's been. He built that side firstly, and also when are Spurs expected to win trophies? I think there's legitimate concerns about his ability to get over the line.
But that was not his fault at all. He got to the Champions League final, did a wonderful job, brought Harry Kane and players like that through.
Yeah.
And if he was given the funds in that summer, you would have seen a totally different season from Spurs.
Yeah, like it's almost like when we look at Mourinho, or even Mourinho in that second season where he got us to second, and you're like, right, you just need a little bit more to get us over the top. We just need that final push, and that's my concern generally with these owners, because if we're consistently hitting top four like we were under Oli, are they gonna give the funds? Yeah, that's a good point actually about Haller. Level of quality. I think it's a little bit of both. I think what Haller isn't is he's not a traditional target man, and that's how West Ham were looking to play him. What he's fantastic at actually is he's great at sort of running into the channel, linking up. He's not just a traditional target man, and he gets into the box, scores goal. It's definitely an element of the Dutch league suiting him a little bit more. But I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if United go and look at him in the summer, and that will make a lot of the United fans annoyed. But if that's what Ten Hag wants to do, then I'm happy about that. So when I look at Pochettino, there are some of the negatives. I think the Premier League proven thing is legitimate because we've seen a whole load of players and managers come in. It's taken them time. But then you go on to Ten Hag, and you got to admire what he's done with Ajax. I mean, they're just a fantastic. Now they're a really strong Champions League outfit, and they're a side that can play absolutely anyone off the park. He's improved some really, let's say, players that aren't of the top quality. Tadic has become one of the most exciting players in Europe over the last couple of years. You've got to give him credit. So
he's brought in players like Anthony. He lost De Ligt. He lost De Jong. He lost Ziyech, Van der Beek, even though obviously, one or two of them haven't really come in and set the world alight. Massive, massive players for them, and has been able to replace, revolutionise and continue.
Yeah, and what I will say about him as well is that he has a really strong philosophy. United will have, if he comes in, they'll play with very wide players. The midfield and the defense, will be tasked with, starting the attacks, and he'll have sort of like a false nine. Although Haller has changed his attack this season. What I like about him as well, though, is that he's very wedded to his philosophy and his system and his identity, and he will be a manager. So people have really different sorts of preferences in football. So I'm someone that really likes to see a really well-drilled side and a manager really stick to their philosophy. Obviously, you don't want to be in like Bielsa's case where you're looking at his team and there's clear issues, and he's just so wedded to his philosophy and the way he's playing in the system that he won't change anything. But I really, what I like about Ten Hag is that he won't come in and change. Like he'll make sure that he coaches. He's a tracksuit coach. He'll make sure he'll come in and coach these players to the absolute T. The problem is that there's a lot of these players here, first and foremost, are not good with the ball at their feet, and that's what they need to be in every single position on the pitch. He loves his fullbacks to go forward, and then our midfield is really important. And Daily Blind's fantastic for him. When I look at Ten Hag, there's legitimate concerns though, because I hear a lot about sort of Spurs and Pochettino, and people say when he's at PSG that he's got the biggest budget. It's exactly the same thing at Ajax, by the way. They're the side with the biggest budget, the most financial power, and then also you look at the structure there as well. Obviously, Van der Sar's the CEO, but Overmars was very critical. He got him from Go Ahead Eagles as well, so they worked together there and then brought him over. So when I have a look at that sort of infrastructure and hierarchy and backing that, look, if Man United can replicate something similar to that, then Ten Hag will do very, very well. But there's zero evidence to suggest that's going to happen. A manager's not going to come in and wave his wand and everything gets better. And I think we saw that when Oli went. I was one of the ones who actually held my hands up and said, you know what? Oli was a problem, but he wasn't the problem. I knew that, but I actually saw, obviously with some of these players as well. And he used to look after these players. He protected them, and they let him down as well. Tactically, he wasn't good enough at times, but they let him down. So when I look at Ten Hag, I have concerns about that because he isn't going out and choosing these players. Like when De Ligt goes, he's not going out and choosing these players. That's what the hierarchy are doing. He's just there to coach the players. So I think there is questions around, sort of. I think United fans think he's going to come in and then bring all this like scouting knowledge. Now he needs support around him to do that. That's why Rangnick was so key, and that's why I'm concerned, because if Ralf Rangnick is the best person you want, whoever's a manager, to have your back and have in the hierarchy. And if he's not going to be there, or he's a consultant and he's only meeting, a couple of times a month, that's my concern here. So that's where Moto has to jump in.
That's a huge concern for me as well. I really feel, I've had so many discussions about it recently. I really feel that Ralph isn't probably going to be given the power or enough power to have a real say on who, and have a real liaison with whoever the manager might be, in order to get those right players in. It is a real concern.
It's a massive thing though, Mark. Like we talk about, sort of scouting, talent identification. We talk about, from top to bottom at Ajax, from right to the, under nines all the way up to the first team. They play exactly the same brand of football, same philosophy, and so Man United isn't like that, from top to bottom. And I think they're trying to make it more uniform, but that takes years. I mean, look, Ajax have been doing this for decades. So that is my concern, is that if Ten Hag turns around and says, I want Tchouaméni, right, in my midfield, fantastic. His performance with Pogba the other night in the international game, I can't remember who they're playing, was fantastic. He scored the winner as well. He's probably going to cost less than Declan Rice. I'm a massive Declan Rice fan. We've had this conversation many times. Yeah. But don't go and spend all your budget on 100 million on him when you can maybe get Tchouaméni for 50, 60 million. If he turns around and says that, because Declan Rice is a club's target as well, let the manager decide who he wants. That's how it should work. He's building a squad, and not just for the short term, going to be for the long term. So that's my concern. The positives though, mate. Like, look, Ajax are one of the best sides to watch in Europe. They're fantastically well drilled. He has got a very high ceiling if all the things fall into place. But there's so many of these elements that have to fall into place, which I don't see at Manchester United, unfortunately, at this current time. Then you look at Enrique. I did actually tweet about it today. I don't think it's going to happen. United are interested. He's got the World Cup. So unless United are going to keep Rangnick till January, which is just not going to happen.
Well, Enrique, just very quickly, actually, Reese has had this here for you for ages. I'll quickly ask you on the back of this. If Man United prolong the interview process and lose out on both Ten Hag and possibly Poch or whoever else, would you stick with Rangnick for another year? Obviously, 6 months is not enough time. An interim is such a farcical name. As you say, there's no sort of responsibility to it, that you know what I mean?
Substitute I wouldn't teacher, Mark. That's what it is.
Yeah, exactly. You always piss about, don't you?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
And ultimately, I said this a few weeks ago. I wouldn't be opposed to him staying another year. At least then he gets a window. At least then, if the right manager isn't available, we perhaps do miss out. It gives you another year to maybe go. I mean, Ten Hag has still got another year under his contract. He might decide to leave now because it's the right time. I think getting knocked out of the Champions League could be the final nail for him to maybe look at pastures new. But he's also professional and might stay for the other year, and it might well be that it might be next year that we could bring him in.
It's pretty much confirmed that Ten Hag will leave at the end of the season. Whether that goes to Dortmund, whether there's another English club apparently looking at him, apparently Spurs or Newcastle or someone. I mean, I think Newcastle's done great under Eddie Howe. They should stick with him, but he will go at the end of the season. I think what I do want to say is that he is under contract. He's at another club, and the United fans seem to think that because there's nothing concrete been announced yet, you can't just go and announce someone's manager. I mean, look, they're still in the title race. They're a couple of points ahead. You cannot carry 3 players in your team. So Poch at PSG is not. That is so spot on. Who was that? I don't know. Was it Trevor?
Trevor, yeah.
Oh, Trevor, that's comment of the night. And I think that's for any manager. That's absolutely for any manager. No manager can sit there and have their front three that doesn't press and does the work, especially when you're a manager who relies on that first wave press and you rely on being compact and you rely on high energy. You're looking at Man United, their front line doesn't always press, and it's a bit frustrating. That's very interesting. They're both club targets, and I think that's the key for me, Mark, is that when we look at Kane and Rice, I think Rice is a bit different to Kane. There's a lot of upside. He's obviously age, and he's a really good player. But if United do go for but one or two of those players, I think that's his. That's spot on as well. I do think that that will show whether things have changed or not. It's a good indication, isn't it? Whether things have changed, and if United are going to go for Harry Kane, I really do like Kane. But what was the question? Sorry, mate. I've just gone on.
No, it's all right. I keep popping up all these comments. They're not for you to go through, mate. Sorry, mate. I was just trying to make sure I get to all of them. And I'm sorry, guys. Just wanted to say, I've missed a lot of comments out tonight. I'm trying to get through them all. And Haider doesn't have to feel like he needs to read them all.
Rangnick.
So don't you worry. Rangnick. Exactly.
So look, Poch is probably going to end up at Real Madrid if he doesn't end up at United, as things currently stand.
Yeah.
And then we've got to be careful with Ten Hag. I do think United have, from what's been said, there have been some sort of agreements on personal terms. Nothing's been signed. He's not joining Man United, but there have been agreements, on things that need to be agreed verbally anyway. And unfortunately, I think the club might be sitting there and waiting for Pochettino. It just seems like that, doesn't it? To see what's going to happen there. It seems to be a little bit of poker going on. Luis Enrique, I think, is the best option out of all of them. Would I take Rangnick for another year? Yeah, absolutely I would, because I've seen improvements. Man United's expected goals is better. See, I think this is the thing. Football sometimes, I think on Twitter, sometimes lacks nuances, right? So if United go and draw 0-0 with Watford, it's just an example. Look, they have to win these games. But as a manager, if you go and set your team out, we're a lot more compact. We're a lot more organized. Off the ball, our structure's much better. We still have issues putting the ball in the net. We're creating a lot of chances. The players are missing chances. We're also not conceding as many goals. Expected goals against are way down to where they were in at the end of Ollie's reign. When all of these, they're obviously tangible improvements. But if your players aren't putting the ball in the back of the net and not scoring goals, what as a manager can you do? So I've seen that with Rangnick. Unfortunately, he hasn't really got the power to do very much. But yeah, I would. I've seen improvements. And that's why it makes me, quite sad if he's not involved in the future structure going forward, because of the fact that he's obviously someone that sees issues at the club. So it's a lot of similar issues that Ollie saw as well. And I actually do have faith that whether he's in the hierarchy or he's on the pitch, touched on the touchline, I think he can fix them with the right support. So yeah, I would be happy with that. But as it stands, I think it's going to be Ten Hag, unless miraculously Pochettino gets sacked, in the next 3 weeks or so, which is probably not going to happen. So I think a lot of fans will be happy about that. I just think that you're going to be disappointed, because I just don't think United is suddenly going to become a great side under Ten Hag. It'll take longer to implement Ten Hag's style of play and his philosophy than it will to, let's say, Pochettino or even Enrique. So that's what I'll say on that. Yeah.
Good points, well made. Thank you, buddy. Reese, another question here. Could you see United maybe going for an alternative?
No.
Other than those three?
No.
Not at all.
No.
So we'll move on
anyway.
anyway.
One of those three.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. We just have to wait and see by the end of the season. I just hope that they try it. You know, they've said in the last few days, or it's come out in the last few days, that they're going to try and announce something within a few weeks. I just hope they stick to that. They need to move early this time, get it done. Everyone's aware, everyone's singing from the same hymn sheet, and then we can move on to next season. So we will see. Bruno Fernandes, it's come out in the last few days, obviously. Massive player for us. Seems to be dropping back deeper a little bit this season, which I've actually quite enjoyed under Ralph. I think he plays that part in the midfield very well. But do you think it's a good thing that obviously he signed a new 5-year contract? And do you think that could be a possible sign that maybe with the interview process, they've kind of mentioned that he's going to be a key player of the next team moving on, and he should fit into. I think there's worries, obviously, if Ten Hag comes in that Bruno might not fit that system. But with a player like that, with the ability that he's obviously brought in and what he's done over the last year and a half, 2 years, you can't not keep him, right?
The club had to elevate him as one of the top earners in the club. They had to do that based on his performances. You've got players sitting there who are on Cavani's on 250 grand a week, and that's what Bruno's got, about 240 grand. They had to elevate him. I think ultimately, end of the day, this fan base doesn't deserve nice things. Because I think ultimately we were sitting there with Pereira as our number 10 and Jesse Lingard. Bruno Fernandes has come in. Nuance is so important. Let's actually break down what he's good at. I think he affects games. He gets goals, he gets assists. This season, I think Ronaldo coming in has disrupted sort of, his pace in the side. And I think there's a little bit of chemistry issues between the two of them. We've seen that with Portugal. But he's affected games. He's been one of the few players that's actually stood up and has been counted for since Sir Alex in the last decade. One of my biggest concerns with Bruno Fernandes is a few things. I think I want to see how he is in a very defined system. Now, we've seen it, and he's been good at times. One of my biggest issues with him is his decision making, and it's not even his pass accuracy. A lot of people bring it up. He's got about 75% or so. So is Tadic, by the way, and I think where he excels more, get him into the box. Remember the Leeds game. Look, Leeds are very easy to play against, obviously, and United really exploited those third man runs. We did it in the game when McTominay scored a couple as well. That's really where you want Bruno Fernandes. You don't want him nearer to your goal. You want him nearer to the box in the opposition goal. So what I like about Bruno is that he can affect games that way. The biggest thing, though, about Bruno Fernandes that's frustrating me at the minute, and I had a little bit of go at him after the Atletico game, petulance, and he's short-tempered. And when he does that, his game goes. His accuracy goes, decision-making goes. He goes for hero ball all the time. So let's be honest, okay? The further he goes back, I think Rannick Schmidt tried to be playing him as a number 8. He's tried to do that with 2-8s with him and Pogba. But the further he goes back, in my opinion, that's where you see more of his deficiencies. It's a bit like Pogba. The further he goes back, he loses the ball quite a lot, but he's very creative and he's a great player going forward. But the further they both go back, that puts pressure on the team, because ultimately at the end of the day, you lose the ball nearer your box, it exposes your centre backs. So when I have a look at Bruno Fernandes, absolutely should have got the new contract. For me, that's actually a positive sign. Like you said, I think it suggests as well that the new managers had an input here, and I think people need to relax. Like, they're not hearing the things they want to hear, and they think that United aren't talking. United are very heavily talking to Ten Hag. As it stands right now, he is the front runner. So he wants to join Man United. All this talk about he's frustrated, he hasn't got a contract, it's all nonsense. Like, why is everyone believing it and reacting to it? But the club are going to do their due diligence. They're going to talk to Poch like they have. They're going to talk to Enrique. I think listen, Mark, if you're hiring someone, you want to talk to all the candidates.
No, this is it, isn't it? Like, and we've used this analogy so many times. You don't just go dive in head first and just go, yeah, let's get this man. They have to do their due diligence. They have to do the interview process. They need to look like they're at least trying to going down the right route and doing the right things. And they do have to go through that process. You're absolutely right.
I think Bruno Fernandes is a fantastic player. I see a lot of comparisons, is he like our Coutinho, where when Liverpool saw Coutinho as well, it's sort of, obviously they got a lot of money to invest, and they got Van Dijk and they got Alisson, and they completely transformed their side. But I think also, I think that's just, it's apples and oranges. People compare stupidest things ever. People say Trent is better than Beckham. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, it's nonsense. And people do that too many times. So I just think that there's legitimate concerns about Bruno, his temperament, and when he's in the system and he's in the pressing system, just do your bit. Don't go charging around. Don't leave gaps so that the centre backs can play through. Do your bit. So I want to see that. I think any manager will be really pleased with a player like him. Like I still think he'd excel in City's and Liverpool. He'd do fantastic as well. You have to remember that this squad has had difficult times in terms of changing your managers. Obviously, Oli played a certain way, and now Ranić's coming in and playing a completely different way. We sometimes see Ranić play with 4-2-3-1. It's a completely different type of 4-2-3-1 to Oli's 4-2-3-1. And I think people have to understand that when they look and say, "Oh well, Pep plays 4-3-3, and so does Klopp." They're completely different.
It's not rigid in its approach, is it? It's obviously changing, and it fits different players and how they go about it.
You remember the West Ham game where just before the last international break, where Rashford scored, Cavani played it across, and we won 1-0. There's this one moment, I always talk about this because it was like, this is it. This is a fluid system, right? And this is what we were seeing. This is what we want to see under Ranić. And this is what I want to see going forward, is that McTominay and Fred pushed forward. Bruno dropped into the number 6 position, picked it up and played a lovely, lovely through ball. And I was like, that's what it's about. Players should be comfortable in rotations. Bruno Fernandes should be able to fill in a number 6 if McTominay and Fred or whoever's playing in those 2-8 positions go forward. And this is what will be expected of players in Ten Hag systems. What happens, in City systems. So that's intelligence, though. That's understanding your role. So when I do look at Bruno Fernandes, he's a massive, vital part for whoever the next manager is. But look, the jury's going to be out as well, to be honest. Can he make it? Can he be consistent? Because you can affect games. There's many times I've sat there and thought, Bruno, awful performance. Rubbish, but he's gone and scored 2 goals. So that should be the challenge to him. But he's got the right attitude, and the United fans that have a go at him, I mean, just they've got the ball knowledge of a melon. Like it's frustrating, and they do it for clicks, do it for likes. Ultimately, at the end of the day, he's been one of the best performers, and he has deficiencies. But I'd like to see what he can do in a more defined system.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. Just going to go to a couple of comments. Thanks for all your comments tonight, guys. Really appreciate it. Really good stuff coming in. Kingfish, not seen your name before, buddy, but thanks for coming in. Appreciate you watching on Twitch. Coming to youtube.com/weekly armchair and get your comments in here. The season is obviously well and truly over. And we've known that for several weeks now, really. Obviously, we were really holding on to that Champions League spot against Atletico, which didn't work out very well. But where do you see us finishing? I know it's an awful subject. I know you've probably been asked it many, many times, and obviously it's not going to be over until the fat lady sings and the points are on the board, right? But what do we do? Where are we going to finish? And then what do we need to do for next season?
How long you got, mate? That's a very, very big question.
All night, mate. All night.
Oh, where are we gonna finish? If ideally, I've said this so many times, and I got absolutely attacked by loads of top reds. Like, we want to travel and go to these countries. I understand completely. I understand that. You want to go and travel to all these amazing away days. I get that, but for the benefit of the club right now, don't deserve to play Champions League football. And unfortunately, Europa League is probably our standard right now. But I would rather not play any European football. I've said this, I banged this drum so many times. And what this new manager needs is he needs time on the training ground. He needs time to basically drill in his philosophy, his principles. The players need to understand their roles to a T. He needs to coach them. Remember when Antonio Conte, I know that was still a title-winning side with Jose Mourinho. They had a bad season. But when Conte came in, didn't have no European football. And it massively, there's a comment here from Struan saying no European football helped Arsenal massively. Absolutely. Arteta's had double the time on the training ground. They're fresher. He's been able to rotate. And he's built the squad around the young talents of Smith Rowe, Odegaard, and Saka. You've got to give them a lot of credit. And I think that's what I would like to look. I think United will finish 5th or 6th. I think they missed out on Champions League. But I would have preferred if they finished 8th, genuinely, and then just built, and then they build this
Thursday
team
night
around
is an absolute killer, isn't it?
For some reason, I mean, I don't know why, because it's the same as Tuesday and Saturday. It's the same, Wednesday, Saturday, wherever it is. But when I look at it, what do I want? How do we fix it in the summer? Well, you got to gut this squad. So you've got to get rid of some of the older players or the ones that aren't contributing. Look, Jesse's going to go. Mata's probably going to go, although I'd like to see him on the coaching team, to be honest with you, because I think he'd be a good influence around there. I absolutely love Juan Mata. Ronaldo probably as well. You're going to have to say bye-bye to him. unless he's willing to have his minutes managed, and then he can impact games and be fresh because he still can do that. He can still win games on his own. I think Maguire as well. To be honest, I'd be looking to cash in on him personally, and I definitely see he's one of the best progressive ball carriers. But I want my centre backs to be agile and to be good in one-on-one duels, and I just don't think he is. And I don't think the partnership between him and Maguire is working. I don't think they complement each other. So I think what United need to do is they need to start building around the youth again. There's some really good young players in this squad. You know, Jadon Sancho is sublime, and he needs a defined system. He comes from a very defined system with Dortmund. He needs one. Van der Beek was a player that does well. I don't think Van der Beek, even with Ten Hag, I just don't think that he suits the Premier League, the pace of the Premier League. You know, and we had this conversation when he signed. Do you remember we did a show, and one of the concerns was that
you know my love for Van der Beek.
I know you know.
So gutted that it hasn't quite worked out for him. And you know, there's still a part of me that if Ten Hag does come in, I know that obviously you've got two dynamics, haven't you? You've got the league that you're playing in, and also you've got the system that you're playing in. I really hope that obviously if Ten Hag comes in, knows him the way that he does, maybe he could still be a cog in that team, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, I think it's a difficult one. I think we're going to see. We'll see in the summer, obviously, what happens, whichever manager comes in. But the key is to do what Arsenal did. You know, Arsenal. My roommate's a big Arsenal fan, and they got rid of Aubameyang, who obviously is doing fantastically well at Barcelona. But they got rid of him. You know, obviously Özil was got rid of as well. They got rid of some of these higher earners, maybe the older players. Something that Ranić actually says when he chooses players, I think it's really interesting. The reason why he chooses players, you know, who are, I think it's 23 and younger, is that they're more likely to listen to instructions. It's all about career development. They're less likely to be about protecting their reputation. You know, they're about the team and they're willing to listen. They're less likely to get injuries. They're more likely to learn. So I think United really need to start building around some of that youth, get Hannibal into the fold. Like, he's going to be a really good player. Get him playing a little bit. Get him coached. Get him training under whether it's Pochettino or Ten Hag, because I think he's going to be fantastic. Start promoting some of these guys. Bring Garner back as well. I want to see what he can do. And if he can't do it, then you sell him. That's the thing.
I saw a comment earlier about Garner. I think he's obviously done tremendously well. He actually played probably their best player against Liverpool the other week. And I wanted to get your thoughts on him, actually. Listen, it's always easy to get excited about players when they're performing well. And obviously it's a clear issue that we've got in our midfield. But do you think he should be given a chance maybe next season?
100%. I had a chat with Paulie about this, actually. And we were both just confused because we were both like, so you've got rid of Donny van der Beek. Like, why not just give Garner a chance? Why do you send him out on loan as well? Why not just give him a chance to see what he can do? If you can't do it, you just send him back out on loan. So this is what doesn't make sense with the club. You know, you went into the season with, Garnacho. I mean, look, he got his
Argentinian
call up. Before. Yeah. All of those players, and Ethan Laird as well, bring them back into the squad and see if they can do it. And then, so, you know, you can't go and buy 10 new players. So you supplement it with youth. And then you really then bring in the manager and whoever it is, whether it's Poch, whether it's Ten Hag, 3 years of, right, you got a 3-year grace period. After that, you need to be challenging for a title and allow them to do what they want to do. So that's what I'd be doing. I'd be almost following the Arsenal model in terms of like promoting the youth and playing the youth and building it around the youth. And then they bought smartly. You've got to give them credit for that. You know, people laughed at Ben White, but he's turned out to be a good signing. And there's some really good young players, but United need to get those big. They need to trim that wage bill. It's a joke right now, and if that means you lose Paul Pogba, which I'd be gutted about, but ultimately, at the end of the day, you know, is it worth the hassle again? I think he is one of the most scapegoated players as well, but he's not faultless.
100%.
You saw him today. He is. We've had this chat many times. Cavani's on 250 grand a week. You know, you can buy 2 or 3 good players on that salary, and then buy smartly. Like, ultimately, it's mad that United bought
250 grand a week and also never available.
But
in the last season.
But you won't hear it. Now people are starting to wake up a little bit and say, oh yeah, Cavani. But you know, United fans will still sing his name, unfortunately. And he doesn't deserve that. He did in the first season. He doesn't deserve that right now. And the fact is, he's probably going to go to Real Sociedad. It's not even you can turn around and say, you know what, the lad wants to go home to Uruguay. So you know what, I get it. Now he's going to go off to Spain. So, you know, United's getting mugged off and he's gone and he's got an absolute packet because United are stupid enough to be the only club that will pay him that salary. He ain't going to get that at Real Sociedad. So that's what I would say to going forward. And then allow the manager to actually choose players he wants. Like, you know, there's a lot of talk of who who would Pochettino want? Obviously, the club have said whether it's Poch Ten Hag, they want Kane, and Nunez is backup. For example, Ten Hag will want someone like Anthony. We need a right winger. He'll want someone like maybe Jonathan David. These sort of players, not big household names, young players that can be developed and coached. And he wants someone like Tchouaméni. And then you look at Pochettino, he might want someone like Rafinha that's been spoken about. These sort of players. And this is the thing: buy the players that they want. But ultimately, at the end of the day, Mark, get yourself a couple of midfielders now.
Yeah, a couple of midfielders and a few more I think we need, but absolutely right. Listen, Haider, it's been wonderful to have you on tonight, mate. Really, really good. Really
Absolute
good.
pleasure. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
And you're more than welcome. Obviously, you've spoken about this a few times. A lot of people in the chat familiar with your face, as they should be. But the Masterclass, obviously doing wonderful, wonderful things with Rob Blanchett. Brilliant, brilliant show. I've seen it many times myself. But just give me a little bit about that, and obviously for everybody in the comments.
Yeah, of course. So look, you guys are doing some fantastic work here, and it's a nice change from the fan channel shouting and all the stuff that you see on the certain channel, and sort of piling hate on certain players and things like that. You know what I mean? I don't need to say it. Obviously, people in the comments will know who I'm talking about. But yeah, look, if you want to see something a little bit more tactical as well, we break down games like that, and talking about United, and every single view is welcome as well. We have so many people that come in and they completely disagree with everything I say, but that's great because we have great conversation. So come and join us. We're live a day after every single Man United game. Will be a tactical breakdown. We're doing a lot more forward thinking as well. We do a lot of player analysis shows. We've done a Ten Hag one as well. Someone that has written a book on Ten Hag as well. And yeah, just help us grow. We've grown tremendously in the last year. It's been a really difficult year, obviously, for United fans. The content's been, it feels like we're doing the same thing every single week. So for everyone, it's not just myself, it's every single United content creator out there. It'd be great to see some of you over there. I know Reese listens to it. I know you do as well. Next season is going to be a good one. When the new manager's announced, we'll do a couple more pieces. The great thing is Rob as well, obviously he's a journalist. He's a Man United journalist. He's got great sources at the club. So you do get a nice couple of nuggets of information here and there. Make sure you check it out, and obviously give these guys a like and subscribe, because they're doing great things as well.
Thank you very much, mate. Yeah, honestly, bro, it's so good to see you, and thanks for coming on. Really, really good chat with you. And I know these are all conversations that obviously we have week in, week out, but it's always good to hear a familiar face and go through these again. But listen, everybody, thanks very much for getting in the comments. Brilliant, brilliant stuff. Please get liking, get subscribing. As I said, it's very, very important. As Haider said, go and watch the Masterclass. An absolutely wonderful show. And go follow him on Twitter as well. You've got always some good points. Listen, we'll see you next time. We've got a few shows in the next few days. Also going to be doing a show on Talk of the Devils as well this weekend as a match reaction. So please go and have a look at that. And we've got Dimes and Buckets and a few other bits and pieces. But listen, it's been great to have you on. As I said, Haider, thanks to everybody in the comments, and we will see you next time.